Text. Men in Focus. Chapter 5. The Impacts of Masculinity, Violence Against Women. Our watch acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this video was produced. We pay our respects to all traditional owners past and present, and recognize the continuing connection Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have to land, culture, knowledge and language for over 65,000 years, and their leadership in preventing violence against women. The presenter of this video, Sarah Hewitt, stands in the studio and speaks to the camera.
Masculinity and gender inequality are strongly linked to men's violence against women. Men's rigid attachment to particular ideas of masculinity means they are more likely to display sexist, disrespectful, and violent attitudes and behaviours.
An animated photograph of a muscular arm appears, with its bicep flexing. An animated photograph of a smartphone appears. The screen shows a slot machine image. A hand appears and swipes the phone screen, replacing the slot machine image with a pixelated pornographic image.
But let's have a closer look at how this can help to drive violence against women.
Text. Violence against women.
There are 4 aspects of gender inequality that consistently predicts and help drive men's violence against women. We refer to these as the 4 gender drivers of violence against women. And there are important considerations here for men and masculinity.
Text. The 4 gender drivers of violence against women. Source: Our Watch, 2021. Change the Story, a Share Framework for the Prevention of Violence Against Women in Australia, 2nd edition. Melbourne, Australia, Our Watch, page 36. Text. Driver 1, Condoning of Violence Against Women. Presenter Shane Tass appears in the studio, talking to the camera.
Condoning violence against women occurs in many ways, such as when we excuse, trivialise or justify this violence, or when we blame the victim. Men in Focus shows that often violence and aggression is associated with men and boys, even in ways that we might accept or excuse.
An animated illustration of a black scribble appears beside Shane. The scribble has an M character and the word violence on it.
How often are boys encouraged to use their fists to sort out their problems in the schoolyard? How often are boys told not to cry, but expressing anger in destructive ways is normalised and seen as more masculine than being vulnerable and admitting weakness or fear?
An illustrated box draws onto the screen with a teardrop inside. A line draws through the teardrop. The teardrop in the box shrinks in scale, revealing a black, violence scribble behind it.
How often do we see statements in the media that seek to excuse, trivialise, or explain a man's action when he perpetrates domestic and family violence? And what message does it send when there is no accountability for men's sexism and use of violence in some of our highest institutions, like in Parliament and our justice systems, for example?
A photograph of a courthouse and judge's gavel appear on screen, next to Shane.
When we support or condone men's aggression and violence in general, men's violence against women is more likely to happen.
Text. Driver 2, Men's Control of Decision-Making and Limits to Women's Independence in Public and Private Life. Sarah Hewitt appears. An illustration of a house with a man and woman symbol inside appears next to Sarah.
In private, violence is more common in relationships where men make all the decisions, feel they own their partners, or hold rigid ideas about being the breadwinner or head of the household.
The house disappears, leaving the man and woman symbols on screen.
In public, when women have less independence and power, this sends the message that women are less valuable or worthy of respect, making violence against them more likely. It also means that women have less input into making important decisions that affect their lives. Men in Focus highlights how men are expected to be in control, to be leaders, to be providers and breadwinners, and are seen as more manly when they are these things.
A photograph of a man's back appears. The man wears a suit. He stands in front of a crowd of people who are out of focus. A photograph of a hand holding a trophy appears on the right of the screen. A photograph of a hand holding Australian currency notes appears on the left of the screen.
It also means that less women are in positions of power and able to make decisions that affect women more broadly.
An illustration of a boardroom table animates on screen. 6 man icons appear around the table, along with 2 woman icons. Text. Fewer women in positions of power. Text. Driver 3, Rigid Gender Stereotyping and Dominant Forms of Masculinity.
Gender stereotyping is when we promote the idea that there are natural or innate ways for women and men to behave, such as that men are naturally aggressive and dominant, and that women are naturally passive and submissive.
An illustration of a man in a box appears with text aggressive dominant. An illustration of a woman in a circle appears with text passive submissive. The illustrations are side by side.
Rigid gender stereotyping impacts people of all genders because it is based on a binary. It is oppositional and hierarchical.
The man box moves on top of the woman circle.
So it impacts people of all genders in different ways.
More man and woman icons appear, along with non-gendered icons of various colors.
Men because they may feel pressure to adhere to stereotypes or even harmful ideas about how to be a man.
A box animates around the second man icon.
And there can be equally restrictive stereotypes that are pushed onto women and gender diverse people.
Circles animate around the woman icons. Boxes and circles animate around the diverse people icons.
All of this has strong links to gender-based violence because it can result in punishments for people when they don't conform to their expected roles.
Black violence scribbles appear around the people icons. A diverse person icon and woman icon move out of their circles. The violence scribbles move closer to them, and they return to their circles.
But also, as noted earlier, men who rigidly conform to gender stereotypes, and in particular ideas of how men are supposed to be, are more likely to perpetrate violence against people of all genders, especially women and non-binary people, but also other men.
The camera moves back to the original man in the box symbol. A violence scribble animates around it. Text. Driver 4. Male peer relations and cultures of masculinity that emphasize aggression, dominance and control.
Men's relationships with other men can be a positive source of support, comfort, and celebration.
Text. Support.
But when male peer relationships are characterized by aggression, dominance, control, or hypersexuality,
Text aggression, dominance, control, hypersexuality.
The idea that men need a lot of sex and should actively pursue it, we know that men's violence against women is more likely, particularly in male-dominated contexts. The research outlined in Men in Focus shows that some men often display stereotypical behaviours of masculinity when they interact and bond with other men in order to prove their manliness to their peers.
A circle illustration animates on screen, connecting 6 man icons together. Boxes draw around 3 of the man icons. Text. Stereotypical behaviours of masculinity.
This can sometimes manifest in these more harmful forms and cultures of masculinity that are overtly aggressive, sexist, and homophobic. Sometimes we see this play out in the workplace, the school playground, or in sports clubs, for example.
3 circles with 6 man icons each, animate on screen. The first circle has a lanyard inside, and text workplace. The second circle has a school icon inside, and text playground. The third circle has a football icon inside, and text sports club. Boxes draw around some of the man symbols.
It also means that these men are less likely to intervene or call out their male peers and friends when they witness these attitudes and behaviours due to loyalty to other men and wanting to fit in.
Text. Supports available. 1-800-RESPECT. National Sexual Assault, Domestic Family Violence Counselling Service. 1-800-737-732. Men's Referral Service. Operated by No to Violence. 1300-766-6491. Australian Human Rights Commission. 1300-656-419. 13 Yarn. 1392-76. Sane. We're people like you. 1-800-187-263. Q Life. 1-800-184527. This video is a part of a suite of Men in Focus practice resources produced by Our Watch and supported by the Australian Government Department of Social Services. Visit ourwatch.org.au. Our Watch. Preventing violence against women.